The Global Quran, a dynamic comprehension, a human perspective. Chapter 1, The Cow, Part 4. The relegation of Bani Israel and transfer of leadership. Dedicated to the Blessed. Briefing to Chapter 1. This chapter of the Quran signifies the characteristics of human beings based on which the Quran calls them the blessed or the disgraced. The emphasis is fundamental to the exemplified nation called Bani Israel in the Quran. They were the descendants of Yaqoob or Jacob, who also opted to be the followers of Musa or Moses, or Isa or Jesus. Later they changed the strategy and started playing tricks with Musa, refused to follow his commands, killed prophets, and distorted God's messages in the books they had. Review of Parts 1 to 3. These sections describe the blessed as people who closely followed and institute God's commands to establish scholarship and integrity and accountability for everyone without discrimination. It has been illustrated that the blessed people manifest God in terms of creativity and supporting the needy. People contrary to the blessed do the opposite and are termed as the disgraced. Examples are given, referring to Bani Israel, who were demoted from the blessed to disgraced on account of their cheating and corruption. Introduction to Part 4, verses 40 to 96. Negation and distortion of divine rules by Bani Israel and transfer of leadership to Bani Hashim. Bani Israel were given a leading role after eliminating the Pharaoh, with knowledge and skills to establish a learned and civilized society. But they violated the commands of God, creating religious chaos in the region that had long-term social and economic impacts. Moreover, they committed crimes like killing prophets, such as Prophet Zechariah and Prophet Yahya, and crucified Prophet Ishaq. Hence, they lost the legacy to be God's representatives. Due to their continuous failures to follow the book, distorting its messages, and violations of divine orders, leadership was taken from them and transferred to the descendants of Prophet Ismail or Ishmael. With this new leadership came a new book, the Quran, which updated the previous ones and rectified distortions made by Bani Israel. Section 4.1. Introduction of Bani Israel and their Machiavellian stratagems. Bani Israel were the descendants of Yaqoob or Jacob, who was the son of Ishaq or Isaac and the grandson of Ibrahim or Abraham. Yaqoob, Ishaq, and Ibrahim are believed to be the prominent prophets or messengers of God of their time. Yaqoob was given the title of Israel. This word came from Hebrew and means servant of God. Hence, his descendants were called Bani Israel, means sons of Israel. The ancestry of Ishaq leads to some other prominent messengers, like Musa or Moses, and Isa or Jesus. And many writers associate the term Bani Israel as followers of Musa, also known as Jews. These people dwelled on the lands of Palestine and its surroundings. The other lineage of Prophet Ibrahim proceeded with the bloodline of his other son, Ismail or Ishmael. Those people dwelled in Arabia. The city of Makkah in the Arabian region is believed to have been established after Ibrahim built the Kaaba, and was rewarded with water wells for the ultimate efforts he and his wife, Hajra or Hagar, with the infant Ismail, made to build the Kaaba. The springs of water around the Kaaba attracted Arabs to form a city. The Kaaba was declared a place of worship, the new center of prostration and prayers, and the nucleus of pilgrimage. So was Makkah. There are various events described in the Quran regarding the tricks played by Bani Israel, such as that of the cow discussed previously. After getting rid of the Pharaoh with the help of Musa, they not only stopped following his commands and paying the taxes, they killed innocent people, including prophets, mimicked God by showing various trickeries, and created religious chaos by distorting God's messages in the books they were granted. Those examples exhibit that religious texts do undergo cultural and political catastrophe, and may consist additions of culturally and politically manufactured theories of a particular era, rather than a divine code. The Quran explains how hypocrites stay under the illusion that facts would blur in the course of time, and false theories would materialize as truth. God assures to eventually preserve the facts, with honest and learned people being the medium in every space-time. The Quran was itself introduced as an update of the divine codes in previous scriptures, and to rectify the distortions. This aligns with a qualitative comparison of the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran. The Quran calls the treachery of Bani Israel tyranny, as they misguided and killed innocent people. While Musa was their rescuer and savior, they took false oaths to follow him with clear intentions to turn away. The cow was only an excuse. The Quran assures that anyone with a similar mindset exchanges eternal blessings with temporary invaluable worldly benefits. Hence, they deserve humiliation and demotion in this world, and will be deprived of any concessions in the torment of the day of accountability. How leadership was transferred to the Arabs. The religious chaos cultivated by Bani Israel not only resulted in polytheism, but also created a political disorder that affected trade communication with the surrounding regions. A tribe in the descendants of Ismail, Quraysh, from Arabian lands, took a prominent step to resolve the matters, and materialized a treaty to secure the trade routes, as trade was the only mean of economic growth in Arabian regions at that time. At that time, most of the tribes in Palestinian and Arabic regions were following Abrahamic faith. The Kaaba had been a sacred place for them and the center of pilgrimage. In this way, the Quraysh successfully tied them to the prestige of Meccan sanctuary, where the Kaaba was situated, and a treaty was signed to stop all violence in certain sacred months to protect the pilgrimage as well as the trade obligations. Amongst the Quraysh, the ones who established the most scholarship, trade management, as well as noble characters and practices narrowed down to a clan called Bani Hashim, which means sons of Hashim. The clan Bani Hashim was named after Hashim, a title given to a descendant of Ismail, Amr. The word Hashim means generous or fulfiller. Amr had laid the foundation of providing food to the disadvantaged people of his region and the pilgrims of the Kaaba, hence got the title. He was particularly respected for feeding the entire population of Mecca at his own expense at the time of drought. Muhammad was the great-grandson of Hashim and was well known for his reliability, honesty, and generosity in the social and trade communities. He was perceived as the soul of Bani Hashim for his noble character and trade management skills. Hence was chosen as a new leader for the mankind. Virtuous Christian and Jew dignitaries of his time also envisaged that he possessed all the qualities and charisma of a prophet articulated in their scriptures. The following diagram shows how the Quran describes transfer of leadership, saying that leadership is earned with knowledge and dignity. It has been asserted sarcastically that if any so-called leader thinks they have secured leadership presenting a distorted religion, then they should pray for death to secure a higher rank in paradise as well. Then the Quran claims that they won't do it, because they know what they have secured for them. They are greedier for life than anyone else. The Quran assures that even if they live 1,000 years, it cannot save them from the torment that they have earned and shall face on the day of judgment. Conclusion. The Quran claims to be the final revelation from God with a basic set of rules for the whole of mankind. To address people in every space and time, the Quran has used a high context, and in many places symbolic language, so that the basics can be applied according to the best standards and particular circumstances of that space-time. The key is to grasp the rationale behind given examples and apply it to contemporary times and situation. Treachery by one person or a group malreputes the whole nation. If hunger for power exists amongst believers, then their beliefs are fake. The lack of leadership in a nation can be determined by 1. Lack of scholarship in existing leaders. They have minimal knowledge to understand deeper concepts in the Book of God, and they try to stay with basics and promote it as a sign of piety. 2. Their lack of worldly knowledge and research to facilitate mankind. 3. Their inability to provide transparent justice to mankind. And lastly, less consumption of taxes they receive to support the disadvantaged and more to promote religious events. The Quran assures that such leaders will not stay long. God shall overthrow them and replace with leaders who qualify for being the blessed, follow the Quran closely to establish scholarship of the world God has created, and have the integrity to facilitate people and share even their own resources with the disadvantaged when needed, as did Bani Hashim. Religious writings may not always represent original messages. Like any other book, they undergo distortions over the course of time, which may be intentional or due to a limitation of knowledge. A simple example from the Quran can be seen in its English and Urdu translations, and in other religious writings, which depict God as a male, using the pronouns like he and him as substitutes for God. This is an explicit misguidance and negation of God as a divine unity. As said by the foremost Muslim scholar Ali ibn Abi Talib, pointing towards God means confining God into a finite entity, and that negates God's eternity. Translators justify the above distortion with limitations of the language that offers only two options to substitute God, either male pronouns like he or him, or female pronouns like she or her. However, it can be seen that they all prefer to use male pronouns, since all Urdu and some English-speaking countries have a masculine or male-dominated culture, and sovereignty is generally associated with males. Remarkably, both Urdu and English languages have options to replace singular nouns by collective nouns for a single being, if needed. In Urdu, it is generally used to pay respect. In English, it is used to avoid gender discrimination. For example, himself or herself would be replaced by themselves for both purposes. Interestingly, the Quran itself gives a similar solution to language limitations, using collective nouns for God multiple times. For example, Surah Yusuf verse 2 says, "Indeed, we have transferred the Quran in Arabic so you may comprehend it wisely." This example alone is sufficient to realize that a collective noun is the right pronoun for God, not only to preserve respect, but also to avoid limiting God into a gender. The condemnation of Bani Israel in the Quran clearly illustrates that if a nation disobeys God's messengers, refutes the basic principles they conveyed, and kills prophets or his followers, then they are not the believers no matter how well they appear to be. They are the disgraced as described in the Quran. Their appearances and following rituals to show certain beliefs have no meaning. Even those who help the disgraced or stay quiet against them are equally disgraced. This channel is an effort to think out of the box of the traditional mindset about the Quran and widen the span to answer questions that consistently challenge the thinking minds. Please subscribe and share it to Thinking Minds, and leave constructive comments to help us make it better. Thank you. The major references for this video have been Quran translation by Ali Khudi Khurai, Quran translation by Dr. Niyaz Muhammad Hamadani, Balaghul Quran by Sheikh Mohsin Najafi, Encyclopedia of Islam by Behrman, Biancas, Bosworth, Donzel, and Henricks, Hosford Insights by Geert Hosford, The Quran with or Against the Bible by Ijaz Naqvi, Arabia and Ethiopia in the Oxford Handbook of Late Antiquity by Christian Julian Robin, Lataif al-Ma'arif by Thalibi, Muhammad Prophet and Statesman by Montgomery, Shura Encyclopedia of Islam by Hamilton and Kramers, The Leadership of Bani Israel, Israelites, Understanding Quran, The Critique of Historicism by Clauser, and The Najj al-Balagha by Ali ibn Abi Talib.